Hi everyone, my name is Yasmina Fares Amado and I'm leading the Digital Innovation Program for AWS in the French market and a bit more widely for Europe, Middle East and Africa, and we share the rest of the market with the rest of my team. So I'm very pleased to be here today with you to talk to you about Amazon's culture of innovation, the way we do innovation, what are the mechanisms that we are using, why we do it that way, and the results that we got out from it for the past 2 decades. So just before starting, I would like to have a very quick icebreaker with you. So here is a picture here of a shoe. I would like you to write in the chat the 2 main colors of that shoe. If you please can write that down in the chat. So I'm not sure if, yeah. Gray and blue, I see. Does anyone see other colors but gray and blue? Pink and white, yes. This is the same picture that I'm showing to all of you. I'm not cheating, I promise. Yes, so there is mint gray, there is pink and white, and every one of us is going to see something different. Let me explain you why. So here you have the explanation. So when you see blue and gray, it means that your left side of your brain is dominating and you are more analytic, numeric, logic, scientific, and it's systematic thoughts. When it is pink and white that you see, it is your right side of your brain that is dominating, and it means that you have more creativity, you like music, art, you're a synthetic and multitasking person. So this is really to show you for one specific thing, one same picture, we don't all see the same thing. And this is how important it is to be more diverse, equal, and inclusive in everything we do. So this is really the way we look at that at Amazon. And I'm going to show you how we use diversity, equity, and inclusion in our different processes as well, because it is really important in order to keep that day one vitality and the day one dynamic that you can have in a company. So our mission at Amazon is to be Earth's most customer-centric company. So this is really wide mission, right? But at the same time, it is laser focused on the customer. We really do everything around the customer. We make all our decisions around the customer. We have all processes around the customer. This is why for us it was logic from day one to use also customer centricity in our innovation mechanisms. So where innovation begins, we start with the customer and we work backwards from the customer. Why do we say that? It's because in a lot of different ways of innovating, and by the way, this is not the only way to innovate that I'm presenting here. And we are not saying that it's the best way to innovate. This is just the way that has been working for Amazon for now a bit more than 2 decades. So there are many ways, multiple ways of innovating. And in the past, and even in my experience, I've seen companies where we have one senior leader having one idea, convincing himself or herself of that idea, convincing their teams, their management, getting the budget and developing something. And then you move forward, you develop it, you build it, and then you have a marketing budget to make it a bit more sexy, and then you launch it to the market. And this is the only moment where you discover whether it's going to be a success or a failure, how the customer feel about it. We believe that innovation is an investment in terms of time, energy, budget, whatever. It is an investment. And what we want to do with our mechanisms is that we want to de-risk that investment. And in order to avoid any risk in your innovation investments, you want to first look at the customer. So we take that process from the end. We first look at the customer. We have data about the customer. We analyze who the customer is, what are the challenges, what are their most important benefits, the key things that they want. We try to understand them deeply before working backwards from that customer to a solution, to a new experience, and so on and so on. So this is really the reason why we would call this the working backwards methodology. Let me give you maybe some more concrete examples of what we have been launching through that method. So everything at Amazon or at AWS is launched through the same methodology, through the same mechanism. We don't innovate without using the working backwards methodology. And here you have maybe the most known products and services from Amazon that have been launched to the market. Of course, it's not the full list, but maybe the ones that are the most known. Here you have, in 2017, we have been launching Amazon Go. Do you all know Amazon Go? Yes? No? So Amazon Go started to exist in EMEA a few months ago, where we have been launching the one in London. Amazon Go is an autonomous shop. So you enter the shop, you buy whatever you want, and you walk out of the shop. So this is a very simple experience that we have been building. And it's not just a crazy not just a crazy idea coming out from someone's mind. It's really the result of that working backwards methodology. So just for the story, Amazon Go, the first customer we have been looking at is the Amazon's employees in Seattle. They are in a business center, just like you can have in La Défense in Paris or in La City in London. And so these people, when they have to go grab something for lunch, they go walk outside, and at the same timings, between noon and 1:30 in Paris, for example, you have a lot of people going for the same, exactly doing the same thing. So they have to queue because there is a lot of people at the same time. And the reason why they have to queue is that they need to pay. So they just queue for paying something. It doesn't really have value for them. And even if it's 5-10 minutes queuing, you still have to queue in order to pay. So this is the real challenge we have been looking at. The customer was the people working in business centers who don't have that much time in the day. And the problem, the challenge we wanted to solve was the queuing challenge. And we have started thinking, if we had a magic stick, if we had no constraint and no limits, what would be the best experience we could bring to those people? And we have been thinking the best experience we could be bringing to those people would be to walk in the shop, take whatever they want, and walk out of the shop. And we started to describe this experience in what we call a press release. So it is a press release, but it is a fake one. It is an internal one in the beginning that you create, and you just put yourself into the future, and you really write it as if you had already launched your new experience. And we go very to the extreme of that exercise. We even write a customer testimonial within the press release. If a customer had experienced that, how would they feel? How would they express their feeling into words? How would they describe the experience? So this is how we first put our vision of an experience into a document. This is the press release document. And we use that to make sure that we have clarity about what we want to launch and how beneficial it can be in the market. And this is really before, way before investing any dollar, any money, any minute into developments or solutions. Once we have written the press release, we read it, and then we start thinking, does it worth it? Does it have value? Do we have the right data checking that we have value, and is there any major benefit for a specific customer? If yes, then we think, okay, now it's worth it, looking at the solutions, looking at how to make it happen, how to build it, what are the technologies behind, what are the partnerships that I can do, what are the startups who can help us in that, and so on and so on and so on. So it's really a two major phases process. The first phase is really about the ideation around who is the customer, what is their problem. Then we ideate on what is the new experience to make sure that the customer is happy about it. And then the third thing would be, okay, now let's look at how to make it happen. So this is really the different steps of the process. I see that there are some comments. Hassan says, the most amazing thing about Amazon Go is the fact that Amazon Prime customers get discounts on every single product. Yes, definitely. You also have a lot of benefits when you're on Amazon Prime. But the first benefit that we have been building with Amazon Go is the fact that you gain time in your day. You don't have to queue anymore. So this is really the major benefit, without which we wouldn't have been launching Amazon Go. And then, of course, you iterate on that idea, and then you add more and more benefits to customers. And of course, everything that you see here in this slide has been created with the same process, with the same mindset, and with the same ways of thinking. So you first think about the challenge, then the customer, sorry, the challenge, and then how to make it happen. So it is really a three-step around this methodology. And if you have any question, of course, please feel free to add that to the chat. I will be very happy to answer them at the end of the session. Let me move a bit forward here, up. So innovation, the word innovation is quite trendy, right? But it doesn't mean the same thing for all of us. So this is why I always like to describe what does innovation mean for us at Amazon. So innovation, what is it made for? At Amazon, we believe that when you innovate, you need to make a customer benefit of something. You need to deliver a major customer benefit. If you don't have a customer benefit in your initiative or in your idea, it is not an innovation. You can call that an enhancement or whatever, but it is not an innovation. So whether your customer can be internal, it can be an external customer, it can be B2B, B2C, B2B2C business, whatever the business is, you always have one person who is going to benefit from your innovation. And you need to identify precisely that person. Sometimes, and even most of the time, you can have a lot of different customers for one initiative, but you need to define who is the main one who is going to make the decisions of using your product or your service or not, right? Remember, AWS, I'm going to tell you the story about AWS right after, but when we have been launching AWS, the main customer was not companies. The main customer we have been looking at are developers. How to make their life more simple, how to make them benefit from building on our platform, and so on and so on. Then the second thing that the innovation should serve transformation, meaning that you don't want to build something that is going to be obsolete in 6 months. You want something that is going to be lasting in time. So this is why you're going to use new technologies, new ways of building in order to make sure that it's going to be lasting in time. And in that sense, innovation should also serve the transformation, right? Then the third thing that you see here is that innovation should serve a strategic ambition. And it's not taboo to say that at Amazon, that any innovation should have a strategic ambition from the company, whether it is a growth ambition, it could be a sustainability ambition, whatever ambition you have, you need to clarify it, to define it, and to make sure that everyone is aligned around that. And then, last but not least, of course, your innovation should also serve the sustainability. We can call that innovability, innovation and sustainability, or smart solutions, using less resources, optimizing processes, optimizing costs, and so on. It's not because you innovate that you need to use more resources or more costs, and so on and so on. We try to make things smart from the beginning. So I was talking to you about customer benefits. So when you have customer benefits, you need to make sure that you base your innovation on long-lasting needs. Some needs that for your customers are still going to be true in the next decade, right? And this is, for example, here, the growth flywheel of the Amazon.com website, the marketplace, Amazon.com or .fr or .co.uk. But this is really the Amazon store that you have online. The growth flywheel, we have 3 major benefits that we know customers will always want. In the next decade, customers will still want good price, good selection, and great convenience. So those 3 wants are really key for us and critical in order to make sure that we innovate on behalf of our customers. And here you see this growth flywheel. So for the company to grow, we need to make sure that the customer experience is great. This is going to bring more traffic, and more traffic will bring more sellers. If you bring more sellers, it's going to bring more selection. more selection will make sure that the customer experience is enhanced again. And while you grow, the more you grow, the more you lower your cost structure, your structure costs, and you can then lower your prices. And if you lower your prices and you have great selection, you also make the customer experience better. So this is really the growth flywheel of Amazon. And each of you can, of course, build the growth flywheel. What is the thing, the key criteria, or the key needs of your customers that you need to base all your innovations on? So this is really the way we do it at Amazon. And then there is also something that is key, is your willingness to sometimes be misunderstood for a long period of time. Remember, this is the first, so this is the first here on the left, the white big thing is the first version of the Kindle. Yes, it was big, it was not that convenient in terms of usage, but it was okay. Why? Because the most important customer benefit in the first one was something that was not existing in the market yet. And what was not existing in the market was the ability to select, download, and start reading a book in 60 seconds. So in less than 1 minute, you were able to select a book from millions of titles, to download it and to start reading it. So this is really the most important customer benefit that we have been launching from the first day. Once we have been doing that, then we iterated on the idea. And the more you iterate, the better you make your product. And now you can have this Kindle with the new design that was very thin, that you can read in daylight or in dark mode. And it's some of them are also even waterproof. So this is just to tell you, in the beginning, your product doesn't have to be fully perfect. And even if you are misunderstood, if you base your innovation on some needs that are real and true for the next decade for your customers, it will be something that you will be enhancing, and it will be something that is going to bring success. Next one. How do we create the right environment for innovation at Amazon? And why do we want to create the right environment for innovation? So the main reason for it is that at Amazon, we believe that innovation is not something that is elitist. This is not something that only a bunch of people can do. Everyone at Amazon can innovate. Everyone. No matter if you have 1 week in the company, if you're an intern, if you are a VP, no matter who you are, you can propose innovation through the same process, writing your press release. But this is really something that anyone can bring. And this is exactly what I was saying at the beginning. This is the benefit of diversity, inclusion, and equity. The more diverse people you have, the better your ideas are going to be, and the most disruptive the experience you're going to build. So this is really how we would use that in our innovation processes. And if you want everyone to be able to innovate, you need to put at their disposal some key pillars. Our 4 pillars are, number 1, mechanisms. The mechanisms are going to help us structure the ideas of the others. So the mechanism is this working backwards methodology, the fact that we write a press release before presenting that and before launching something and so on, to make decisions, right? And just to give you an example, myself, I have a big cemetery of press releases at home. When you start writing something, writing your idea, your innovation, you actually clarify your ideas. And then you realize whether, okay, this is worth it. I have the data showing that this is really worth it. The market needs that. Or you just tell yourself, okay, I don't think this is worth it, or this has value, and I'm just going to stop spending time on it. So it's really important to have a structure. And this is how our mechanisms are going to help us. But mechanisms, it's not because you want to structure the ideas that you want to lose time in the innovation process, right? So your mechanism need to be made in a way that helps you gain time and move faster. And this is exactly what the working backwards methodology is about. It's about, from the moment you identify a customer and a challenge, and the moment you have your first draft of a press release, you have only 8 hours. It is a 1-day workshop. So it's very fast, very quick for you to think, okay, does it worth it for me spending more time in it or not? And so this is really what mechanisms would bring: structure and gaining time. And we all know how much time to market is important, even more in innovative initiatives. So this is really why it's important. And we would use the PRFAQs. So PRFAQs means press release that I told you about, and frequently asked questions. Those two documents always go together, and you have the press release in a one pager, and the FAQs are following that press release, where you answer all the questions. Internal questions like how much is it going to cost? What is the technology behind? How are we going to make this happen? By when shall we launch that? What is going to be in the first version? And so on and so on. And you also have customer questions that you add in the FAQs, like how can I use it? Is it free? If not, how much am I going to pay? I don't know, whatever questions you may have, you always add them to the FAQs. Even if you still don't have the answer, you add them to the FAQs because it helps you have a better vision of what you're launching. The second pillar, so sorry, just about this press release and this mechanism, it really helps us, as I was saying, to gain time in the decision-making process, because you need to decide whether your decision is going to be a one-way decision or a two-way door decision. If your decision is reversible, this is something you can go quicker, right? But if it's not, you need to take more time before deciding. At Amazon, we always try to make sure that we have two-way door decisions. And this is what is going to make your decision-making process much faster. And this is exactly where the press release and the FAQs and the working backwards methodology is going to help us make the decisions on an iterative mode. So the second pillar here is the architecture. How is architecture important in our innovation mechanism? So this is not more or less than the story of AWS. So in the beginning, AWS has been created by Amazon.com for Amazon.com. It was not meant to be the company that it is today. In the beginning, so Amazon.com, the marketplace, had challenges in innovating fast. So we have grown very fast, and that growth made us decide that we needed to innovate to bring more convenience for the customer experience. And we wanted to innovate all the time, but we on our IT architectures, we couldn't make that happen. We couldn't innovate fast. Every time we were trying to build or to experiment something, it was costly. And in order to scale as well, it was a bit of a challenge. And this is exactly when we have been deciding to have a cloud strategy. And this is where we have created the AWS cloud, the Amazon Web Services cloud. And when we have seen the way it has been helpful to our developers to build faster, to scale faster, and to minimize the costs of experiments, this is how and where Andy Jassy himself has been writing a press release in order to propose AWS platform to other developers in other markets and in other companies. So this is really the way we have been making AWS the company that it is today. I'm just going to come back a second on minimizing the costs of failure. Why do we want to minimize the cost of failure? So at Amazon, we believe that on 10 different initiatives, 9 are going to be failures or experiments, and the 10th one will be a success. But the 10th cannot happen if you didn't go through the 9 failures, right? So this is why it's not because you accept that on 10 initiatives, 9 are going to be failures, that you accept the cost related to it. So this is why you really want to minimize the cost of your experiments and of your failures, of the 9 ones. And this is how the AWS architecture helps you doing that. Because I don't know if you're aware about the AWS business model, but if you use the AWS platform, you pay for it. Tomorrow morning, you decide stop using it, you stop paying for it. This is as easy as this. And this was built that way for the Amazon developers, and this has been kept for any other developer. So today, the AWS platform is built that way. So you're not locked with licenses or with other punishing prices, as you can see in other softwares, for example. Now, the third pillar, our organization. So this one is key and critical for me, because this is the right mechanism in order to keep that day one vitality. How do we keep day one vitality and the growth of a startup at a company like Amazon? The secret of that is the organization. So we are organizing what we call two pizza teams. So it is teams that are smaller, 8 to 10 people maximum, that you can feed with two American-sized pizzas. But this is really the concept, is about having smaller team with a bigger authority, with a bigger power of decision making, right? So if your team is smaller and they can make decision just within the team, they will make those decisions faster. And if you can make decisions faster, you can build faster. If you build faster, you grow faster, and so on and so on. So this is really the way we would think about organization. And this is really something that is inspired by startups, the way we work in a startup, the way we make decisions in a startup, the agility of a startup is really the decision-making process, because you have less people, bigger power of decision-making, and you can make things faster, innovate faster, experiment faster. And this is what drives growth, right? And this is the dynamic that we want to keep within our two pizza teams. So at Amazon, I don't even know how many two pizza teams we have, but what I can tell you is that this is the way it works everywhere, whether it is Amazon.com, AWS, the sales teams, whatever teams, it is always two pizza teams. But it's not that, because in a company, so we have said that we want everyone to innovate. So we want to make them in a comfort zone in order to innovate. But it's not because you bring the right mechanisms, the right architecture, and the right organization to people that they are going to innovate, right? What is going to be missing, critically missing, is their self-motivation of proposing things, of proposing value, of innovating, right? And this is what is going to be driven through our culture, right? So our culture is around our 16 leadership principles. They are public, by the way. You can go and check them on the internet. And those leadership principles, you can see them as, some customers tell me it is like the golden rules. But we prefer to describe that as the DNA of the company. And why? Because this is how, from day one, this business has been built. These are the values with which the business has been built. Customer obsession is critical. Invent and simplify. We don't want to complexify things. We want to help people innovate and invent things without complexifying them, and so on, and so on, and so on. And these are the values with which we want to deliver value to our customers as well. So this is really the DNA of the company. And even bigger than that, it's not only the DNA of the company, it is the DNA of each collaborator. Each person at Amazon has this DNA as well. And this is why we use those leadership principles in our hiring process, in the promotion process, in the yearly review process with collaborators, and so on and so on. We really use them all the time, because we want to make sure that we reward people on a way that, because they serve and they serve the right value to our customers. And the most important on customer obsession, and what is behind the customer obsession, is that each person wants to bring value to the customers. Why we want that? Because from day one, we believe that if we help our customers build their own success, it is going to build our success, right? So this is really our biggest and maybe top one priority, to bring value to our customers. So if you want to know more about that, there is a Gartner article that is quite well written about our 4 pillars and the leadership principles, the way we use them, some other companies that we have been helping in order to help them use that mechanism. And my program, the Digital Innovation Program, is something that with which we support our customers through the digital innovation mechanisms. So for example, if you have one topic that is strategic for you that you would like to tackle on the Amazonian way, this is what this digital innovation program is about. And we always tend to inspire our customers to bring them value through this. So this is it for my presentation. Let me take your questions. I see that we have some questions here. So Hassan is saying about the flywheel, where do you actually start? Is it from the customer experience? So yes, because we believe that the customer experience is the major benefit that our customers are going to have. But it's not because you start there that you don't have the other ones that are going to build the flywheel. But yes, the customer experience is key. If you have the price, if you have the selection, but you don't have the convenience and you cannot really scroll well in a website, you will not go to that website. So this is why it is maybe one of the most important need here. Another question from Hassan. What are you doing differently during your interview process to improve the diversity of AWS staff? So the inclusion and diversity is really key at AWS. The thing we do is that, number one, we hire, we don't look at gender, origin, race, I don't know, all those things is not something we look at. This is number one. Number two, we have different people who hire. You don't have one single interview with one single person. Actually, there is recruiters who make sure that your experience fit with the job description. And then you have a lot of other people who don't even know what your job is going to be about sometimes. And they are the ones who are going to be interviewing you in the loops. And the way the interview is conducted is really on a way where we want to better understand your culture. How customer obsessed are you? How think big are you? And so on, and so on, and so on. So it is really this way that we are trying to be very inclusive. We try to always make sure that we have women in the loops, always make sure that we have a diverse interviewers for interviewing one person. And then the way we also make sure that we are very inclusive, diverse, and equal is that we base the decision of a candidate about data. What is the data showing that this candidate is the right one or not, by the way? And we have bar raisers who are people who are checking that we have the data and we make decisions based on that data. So this is really the way we would use it on the interview process. Yep, Parag. How long did AWS live inside the company until it was released as a product to the outside world? I think it was a bit more than 10 years. So I don't have the exact timing, but it was a bit more than 10 years. So we could really see the benefit that it had internally before we could launch that in the market. Ina is asking, what are the 16 leadership principles? So they are public. So the 16 leadership principles, you can just type Amazon leadership principles and you will have them. It is the full list. By the way, it was 14 before, and it is 16. We have been adding 2 from July 1st this year, and we are very proud of those 2 ones. One is really about inclusion, diversity, equity, which is strive to be the best employer. And the second one is really that we want to use our scale and our scope to lead the way on sustainability. And Anita, I'm taking just one last maybe question. Anita, can people propose ideas based on their own ideas rather than customer data? So this is exactly the key point. You want to propose things based on customer data. Why? Because on this innovation process, you don't want to risk the failure, right? So you want to avoid any risk of failure. And if you want to avoid that, you want to avoid any personal conviction. So if you're convinced, completely convinced about something, you can write it down, but you do not, if you don't have customer data showing that your conviction is right in the market, then you will not go through in the process. Why? Because then it would be too risky. Your worst enemy in the innovation process is your personal convictions. And why? It's because human beings are made to convince. You are made to convince yourself and to convince the others. So you are going to convince yourself, you're going to convince your family, you're going to convince your bank, you're going to convince a lot of people. But if you don't have customer data to show that your conviction is right, then it means that you're taking a bigger risk and your investment then is at risk. So this is why we would do it that way. Any other questions you may have? We still have 10 minutes, as I can see here, so please feel free to ask your questions. No other questions? So in waiting that maybe you are having other questions, I will wait for them coming. But maybe I can share with you something. So this press release and FAQ process, this working backwards process, is something that I discovered when I arrived at AWS a bit more than 2 years ago. And before that, I was a freelancer. I was leading big programs to implement IT staff worldwide, so it was quite huge. And I thought we were doing agility. When I arrived at AWS, I discovered this process and I was like, okay, oh my God, we need to write things down. I don't like writing things down and so on. But when I tried it, I just realized how efficient that was. Because actually it is a hard work. It is a huge amount of work, but it makes you save even more afterwards. And as an entrepreneur, because I have been an entrepreneur as well, I have a lot of different ideas, a lot of different innovations that I always want to build and so on. And this process has helped me filter my ideas and filter where it's worth it spending time and money and energy, and where it is not worth it. So it was really something critical for me. So do you work with seed startups, and how do you manage your relationship with them? So we at AWS work with startups, of course, and the seed startups as well. Through the digital innovation program, we just do that on wide ways, like this session, for example, one-to-many sessions. But of course, if this is something that is interesting for you, we have other services who could provide you help, guiding you. And there are a lot of articles, videos about this that can also help you understand the process. And of course, feel free to come to me, add me on LinkedIn. And if I can help you in a way or another, I will, of course. Really inspiring presentation. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Oh, my LinkedIn is quite difficult to find. So it is Yasmina F, like this, that F. So on LinkedIn, you can find me through this, or you can send me an email at yasamado@amazon.com. This one. Feel free to reach out. Of course, if I can help you, I will. And if I cannot, I will redirect you to the right people who are going to be able to help you. Feel free. That would be a pleasure for us. It is really our mindset and our culture to bring you value. So do you have advice to first-time founders in order to improve execution? So just before I give you the advice, I'm going to explain you where it comes from. So I have been leading this digital innovation program. I have been leading a lot of big projects, even seed startups in big groups and stuff like that. And I think that when you don't, so if you rush to building something, this is the biggest risk that you take. Take the time to define who the customer is. Even if you believe you know it, writing it down is going to make it clearer for you, and it's going to align the people working with you. So my biggest advice would be spend more time defining who your customer is. What is the biggest benefit? What is the challenge you are trying to solve in the market before rushing to solutioning? Because solutions, you always have solutions. We always have technology solving things and so on. If you clearly define who is the customer, what is the customer benefit, and what is going to be the customer experience like, this is, for me, the key point where you will build success. If you don't find those 3 points, don't spend time, don't lose time on solutioning. Don't even lose time on looking at technology. Don't even lose time at things like that. And in the other way, if you're already convinced about some technology, something that you want to build, you convinced at the point that you're not open-minded anymore to do some ideation, then go for it. Prototype it directly. Don't get through ideation sessions too late, because otherwise you're just going to lose time. Prototype it, test it with real customers to get feedback from them and to iterate on your idea, and it's going to be helpful. So reach product market fit faster. I'm not sure I understand the question. I'm really sorry. If you can put it back. so for the press release, should it contain all the information from A to Z, a description of the project innovation, or just describing the process? No, it should not include everything. The press release is a one-pager. You cannot do more than one page. In the press release, you describe the new experience and the way the customers are going to speak about it. What does it change for the customers using your innovation? So it's not from A to Z explaining how it's going to work and so on. All the details are going to go to the FAQs list. In the FAQ, you put all the details, very detailed. But the press release is really describing the vision. What is it going to change? What was the problem? Why did we solve it that way? And why it is a good experience at the end of the day for the customer. Last question. How do you achieve real customers at AWS for testing? So this really depends on the topic, the product or the service that you launch. But if we launch something, we always tend to have, when we have the MLP, the minimum lovable product, which is different from the MVP, the minimum viable product. So the difference is that the MVP, you launch it because you have some technical constraints that don't allow you to launch it before having all your technical constraints. The minimum lovable product is way forward that. You don't launch something if you don't have a major customer benefit in it. So the MVP is most of the time the internal version of your product, and the MLP is the external version, something you can show to your customers because they really have a benefit in it. So this is one. And when you have your MLP, then you select a pilot of customers who are going to be part of this first testing phase. Sometimes we have internal people who are going to test new experiences, for example, on the Amazon.com website, just making sure that it's working and things like that. So this is really depending on the product and on the service. You always have a time where you test it with real customers, limited amount of customers, of course, but with real customers before scaling it. And if the results are good with your prototype, your MLP, then you scale it to a wider range. Can people propose ideas based on their own ideas rather than customer data? So I'm sorry, this one was already answered just before. I don't see other questions. Are there any other questions? What is needed to kick off an initiative? How do you share your learnings from a failure? This is very important. So what is needed to kick off an initiative? Press release, FAQ. If I go to my manager and I tell him I have a great idea and so on, the first question he's going to ask me is going to be, oh, really? Fine. Where is the press release? I want to read it. So this is the first thing you need. And how do you share your learnings from a failure? We have a document that we call COE, which is commitments on errors. And you actually write a document where, okay, this was the failure, this is what we have been looking at, and this is why it have failed, or the data that we have showing that it has failed. And this is really something that we are going to use in order to enhance that idea and iterate on it to make sure that the idea is going to be better and that the product at the end is going to be something much more adapted to the market and to the customers that we are targeting. So thanks a lot, everyone. We are arriving on at the end of this session and this workshop. I hope it has been useful for you. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to reach out to me. I would be happy to help you. And I'm wishing all of you a nice evening. Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone.